They think they can act without consequences, but what if I told you that none of them will escape what's about to happen? How many times have you looked at an injustice and wondered, is no one seeing this? Well, today you'll find out that there's a court above any human law, and when God decides to act, no force on earth can stop him. Those who mocked, lied, and tried to destroy what they didn't understand are about to face something they could never imagine. It's not about revenge, but divine justice. Have you ever thought about what it would be like to see masks fall before your eyes? Get ready, because what seemed like God's silence was, in fact, strategy. He was never late. He was just waiting for the right moment to show that only He can turn any situation around so quickly that no one will have time to react. You'll understand why no attack is in vain. You'll realize that your faith isn't weakness, but the key that transforms everything. And the best part, you'll see clearly how God is lifting up every chosen one who endured in silence. So hold on tight, because when the heavens decide to move, the whole earth feels it. And today, you'll see exactly that happen. They may hide behind lawyers, resources, and loopholes in the law, but there's a court that knows no corruption. There, no secret deals or sly escapes exist. God sees every detail, and before Him, no argument can change the truth. And do you know what's most striking? Even when it seems like nothing is happening, the celestial clock is ticking toward the perfect reckoning. It's in this court that faith is tested. When everything seems lost and human justice fails, the chosen discover they're not alone. Remember that time you thought, there's no way out? That's exactly when the heavens start to move. No matter how many stamped papers stand against you, none hold more authority than God's verdict. Many look at divine silence and conclude, He's not seeing anything. But what they don't know is that silence is just preparation for something greater. It's like a storm forming slowly while the winds seem calm. When the time comes, nothing can stop it, and those who dared to touch what is sacred find out they messed with the very owner of justice. That's why those with faith stand firm, even when the world laughs. It's like the story of Joseph, sold by his brothers and unjustly accused. To human eyes, he seemed forgotten in a prison, but in God's eyes, he was being positioned for the throne. It's not about looking victorious now, but trusting that victory was decreed before the battle even began. When the celestial court moves, every tear shed becomes evidence, and no human judge can overturn what's been decided above. It's as if the heavens say, now it's my turn. That's when enemies realize they toyed with something they couldn't control. That's when everything starts to change. And if you think it ends here, you're mistaken. Because while God's justice prepares to act, the spiritual backstage is revealing something even bigger. And that's exactly where the desperate attempts at destruction come in. How many times has someone tried to dim your light just because they couldn't bear its shine? False accusations, malicious words, even traps planned in silence. But there's a truth no one can deny. The chosen one may be attacked, but is never destroyed. Because what God protects doesn't break. It only grows stronger. Many enemies believe that seeing no immediate defense, you're alone. Little do they know that the silence of the righteous is more powerful than 1,000 speeches. It's in silence that God writes the strategy, and in that calm, He sets the stage for the turnaround. Those who laugh now have no idea what they'll be forced to witness. These attacks are nothing new. Since ancient times, those who carried a purpose were targets. Just think of David, surrounded by enemies who swore he wouldn't survive. Yet every attempt at destruction became a step toward his elevation. It's no different with you. God doesn't just see, He keeps track of everything. And what's most curious? Often these attacks are signs that something big is about to happen. The greater the opposition, the stronger the confirmation of what was promised. It's like a rubber band. The more it's pulled back, the greater the forward momentum. What seemed like the end is just the beginning of something much bigger. Those who tried to destroy you without realizing it only proved who you really are. Because if there wasn't something valuable in you, no one would bother attacking. The very resistance is the greatest proof that a purpose is being fulfilled. And against a purpose established by God, no weapon prospers. Now take a deep breath, because what comes after these attacks isn't defeat, it's justice. And not just any justice, but the kind that comes straight from heaven, and it's closer than many would dare to imagine. Have you ever noticed how sometimes God seems not to answer? The heart cries out, the mind questions, but all you hear is profound silence. Many mistake this silence for abandonment when, in reality, it's preparation. It's in that interval that He's moving pieces you can't yet see. It's not delay, it's perfect alignment with something greater than any expectation. The heavens work in codes men don't understand. While you think you're standing still, doors are being unlocked behind the scenes. It's like a construction site at midnight. No one hears the hammers, but suddenly by morning, everything is ready. That's God's style of acting. Invisible at first, undeniable in the end. Waiting isn't easy when the fight intensifies. The flesh craves immediate answers, but the spirit knows that promises never arrive before their time. Even Jesus had moments when He seemed forgotten, like in the silence of the tomb. But it was exactly there, when no one saw anything, that the greatest victory in history was being prepared. And when God finally breaks the silence, it's not with small signs. He arrives with a turnaround so unexpected that even skeptics are left speechless. What seemed lost becomes a testimony, and what looked like failure becomes evidence of His faithfulness. No silence from God ends without purpose. This silence also serves to reveal who truly trusts. Only those who believe without seeing stand firm, and only those who don't give up in the process reap the reward. Every second of waiting is building something powerful, ready to burst forth in a manifestation of grace and justice. And when that manifestation arrives, it doesn't just answer your prayer, it humbles every human expectation. It's the kind of response that can't be explained, only experienced. And those who endured the silence will understand, God was never idle. He was preparing something greater. Does it feel like everything's against you? Perfect. That's exactly when God loves to act. He doesn't step in when everything's calm. He shows up when the impossible becomes the only way out. Every enemy who celebrated too soon is just part of the audience for what's about to happen. When God decides to turn the tables, no human strategy can hold Him back. He takes the plans of adversaries and turns them into fuel for your victory. Remember Haman, who built a gallows for Mordecai and ended up hanging on it. That's how God works. The evil planned against you becomes proof of His sovereignty. And the most striking thing is how it all happens suddenly. Today you may be surrounded by criticism, doubts, and bad news. Tomorrow, that same stage will host a miracle no one can deny. Because God doesn't just solve problems, He creates testimonies that can't be silenced. Every detail that seemed like defeat will be used as part of your exaltation. Those who laughed will have to watch, and those who doubted will have to admit, only God could do something like this. The turnaround isn't just a victory for you, it's a message to everyone who thought they could decree your end. And what comes after this turnaround? Peace. Not ordinary peace, but the kind that comes when you look back and realize everything had a purpose. The tears you shed were merely watering the ground where something impossible to uproot now blooms. So don't fear the current scene. It's just a blank canvas where God is about to paint the most unexpected masterpiece of your story. And when He's done, no one will be able to erase His signature. Sometimes what transforms your life doesn't come with noise. God doesn't need applause to act or evidence to prove He's working. He moves subtly, shifting directions and adjusting paths while you're still trying to understand what happened. It's the kind of invisible movement only noticed when the fruits appear. That's the divine way of building miracles. He doesn't shout, He directs. While many wait for grand signs, God prefers to act in the simplicity of details. An unexpected encounter, a door closed that seemed unfair, a delay that later makes sense. Everything connects so perfectly that you realize it wasn't chance, it was strategy. And suddenly what was once confusion becomes clarity. The wind you didn't see working now has tangible results before your eyes. That's how God moves, without needing to prove anything but leaving marks no one can erase. When He decides to blow, no resistance can stop Him. That's why you shouldn't underestimate silent days. They're not a waste of time, but preparation for something much greater. God isn't idle. He's aligning what you can't control. When His wind blows, even what seemed dead comes back to life. And if it hasn't happened yet, don't be fooled. It's not because it's taking too long, but because he's perfecting the details. A gentle breeze can change the entire landscape, and when it comes, you'll realize he was always moving everything in your favor. In the end, you won't just thank him for what you received, but for what you didn't see. Because God's wind doesn't just transform circumstances, it shapes hearts. And it's impossible to remain the same after being moved by him. The pressure you feel today isn't a sign of defeat. It's evidence that something is being formed within you. Just as gold is purified by fire, resistance builds the structure needed to carry what's coming. God doesn't waste struggles. He uses them as tools for construction. Many want results without the process, but that's not how it works. Strength is born in friction, and maturity comes from facing tough days. Every tear, doubt, and sacrifice has a defined purpose. It's in the squeeze that you discover you're not alone and that the heavens never stopped working for you. Over time, you realize nothing was in vain. What once seemed unbearable becomes the testimony of your resilience. The weight didn't destroy you, it only strengthened you. It's like a root that grows deeper during a storm to later support a tree no one can topple. And then comes the moment when you understand. It wasn't about what you lost, but what you gained in resilience. What once made you stumble, now teaches you to walk with confidence. God doesn't allow a burden you can't bear. He uses each one to prepare you for places you don't yet know. This transformation is silent but powerful. When you least expect it, you'll realize you no longer fear what once scared you. Because those who learn to carry weight with God don't just win battles, they become stronger for the next one. In the end, you'll thank him not just for the victory, but for the path that made you capable of receiving it. Because only those molded by weight and who didn't give up truly understand the value of strength. There's no eternal night. No matter how dark it seems, there's always a moment when the first light appears, even if faint. That's how it is with God. He arrives when everything seems at its limit, when the darkness feels final. But his light doesn't just illuminate, it redefines the entire landscape, showing that no despair is permanent. Every second of darkness is just the prelude to an unexpected dawn. God uses the darkest periods not to destroy you, but to reveal his power to transform scenes. It's in the contrast between darkness and light that miracles take shape and meaning. When he decides to act, no shadow can resist. God's dawn isn't gradual, it's striking. He doesn't just come to dispel fear, he brings answers that surpass any expectation. Promises that seem distant are pulled close, and what seemed impossible becomes reality before your eyes. When he appears, there's no room left for doubt, so never cling to the limited view of the night. The heavens have an exact time to turn the page and change the entire story of those who stand firm. Even when there are no signs of change, God is preparing the stage for his light to shine even brighter. And when that day comes, everything makes sense. The darkness wasn't a waste of time, but the perfect frame for the light to come. Every tear shed in the silence of the night becomes proof that you didn't wait in vain. God never stopped writing the next line. And so, when the light finally breaks through, there's no mistaking it. It's him. And when he illuminates, there's no room for doubts, only gratitude. It's not human strength that defines what will open in your life. When God decides to fling a door wide open, no system, person, or circumstance can stop it. He doesn't ask for permission or consult opinions. He just acts. And what he opens stays open. Often, before opening the right door, he closes several others. This isn't cruelty, it's care. God knows what you don't see and cuts off paths that seem promising, but would lead to ruin. It's in that apparent frustrationalio that he's protecting what's yet to come. And then, suddenly, what seemed impossible happens. An unexpected connection, a unique opportunity, an inexplicable turnaround. It's not chance, it's God's hand changing the course of the story without needing explanations. What's his arrives with authority and stays. So don't fear when doors close. Not every loss is a setback. Sometimes it's just God pulling you away from places that weren't meant for you. If something hasn't opened yet, it's because he's saving you for the right door, one no enemy can touch. And when that door swings wide open, you'll understand that everything had a purpose, Nothing that seemed like delay was wasted. It was all part of a perfect alignment. God doesn't just open paths, He creates destinies. When He turns the key, no opposing force can resist. And when you walk through that door, you'll realize that's exactly where you were always meant to be. There are moments when God doesn't answer as we expect. His silence feels heavy, almost unbearable, but it's in that interval that He works most deeply. Don't be fooled. Absence of sound doesn't mean absence of action. While you wait, He's aligning everything behind the scenes. Often it's in silence that we learn to truly hear. Distractions fade, surrounding voices lose strength, and only then do we notice the subtle signs He's always sent. God's silence isn't punishment. It's an invitation to a deeper level of trust. Even without audible words, He speaks through circumstances, small changes, and even inexplicable peace amidst chaos. That's how He teaches us to see with the eyes of faith, not just natural eyes. When you learn to trust what you can't see, the world's noise loses its importance. The secret is not to confuse silence with abandonment. God doesn't need noise to prove He's present. His faithfulness is constant, even if invisible. And those who learn to rest in this understanding find strength that doesn't come from themselves. And then, when we least expect it, the silence ends. An answer arrives, a door opens, a path is revealed with clarity. And in that moment, everything that seemed uncertain becomes living proof that He never stopped acting. God's silence isn't empty, it's preparation. And when He finally speaks, every second of waiting reveals its worth. There's a strength that only emerges in those who choose to remain. While many give up at the first difficulties, those who put down deep roots learn to withstand storms without falling. That steadfastness doesn't come from you, but from God, who invisibly strengthens those who trust in Him. Roots don't appear instantly, they grow hidden in the dark. It's in the silent process that God builds your foundation to bear the weight of what's coming. Visible growth is just the result of what no one sees. When the winds blow hard, that's when roots show their value. While others are swept away by circumstances, you stand firm, not because you're stronger, but because you're rooted in the One who never fails. True stability doesn't depend on what's outside, but on what's planted within. And it's in the toughest seasons that roots grow even deeper. Every challenge, tear, and moment of waiting becomes spiritual nourishment. God wastes nothing. He uses even pain as part of the strengthening process. So when the time for harvest comes, nothing can stop it. What was cultivated in faith will bloom, not by chance, but because it was watered with perseverance and sustained by promises that cannot fail. Those rooted in God don't just survive, they thrive. And when everything around them crumbles, they remain standing because their strength comes from a place that cannot be shaken. In the end, it all comes down to trusting the God who never loses control, even when we don't understand His ways. Every silence, every wait, and every challenge was just a tool to make us stronger, deeper, and closer to Him. What seemed like delay was in fact preparation. What seemed like loss was construction. And now, with firm roots and matured faith, we can walk without fear, certain that the One who began the good work will be faithful to complete it.